Chapter 1. The deed to the farmhouse arrived with a warning I ignored. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. It was thick, yellowed, and smelled faintly of damp earth, like it had been buried somewhere before being mailed. My name, Clara, was scrawled across the front in shaky ink, and there was no return address. I don't know why I hesitated. Maybe it was the way the paper felt too heavy, or how the edges were frayed, like someone had clawed it open and resealed it. When I finally tore it open, a single sheet of parchment slid out. The deed to a farmhouse in rural Vermont, left to me by a great-uncle I'd never met. The lawyer's note was brief, but the last line stuck with me. "Do not stay overnight." I laughed it off. A free house? I wasn't about to say no. We were desperate for a fresh start. Me, my boyfriend Nate, and our friends Lily, Marcus, and Sophie. The city had worn us down. Nate's job loss, my endless freelance gigs, Lily's breakup. They'd left us all frayed, like that envelope. A farmhouse in the middle of nowhere sounded like an escape. Marcus, ever the skeptic, called it a scam. "Nobody just gives you a house, Clara," he said, rolling his eyes over our group chat. But Sophie, always chasing adventure, was already packing. Lily just wanted quiet, somewhere to sketch without noise. So we piled into Nate's beat-up van and drove north, the deed tucked in my bag like a strange talisman. The farmhouse came into view as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple. It was bigger than I'd imagined, a sprawling 2-story structure with sagging eaves and peeling white paint that flaked off like dead skin. The windows were dark, reflecting the last streaks of daylight like eyes refusing to blink. The air smelled of pine and something sour like rotting fruit left too long. A gravel path crunched under our tires, leading to a porch that looked one storm away from collapse. "This is rustic," Lily said, her voice tight as she clutched her sketchbook. Nate grinned, ever optimistic. "Needs some love, but it's ours." We stepped out and the silence hit me. No birds, no wind, just the faint creak of the house settling like it was breathing. The front door was heavy oak, carved with faint spirals that made my eyes ache if I stared too long. The key from the envelope fit perfectly, but the lock groaned, as if it didn't want us inside. The foyer smelled of mildew and old wood, and a chandelier hung above us, its crystals coated in dust, swaying slightly despite no breeze. "Power's out," Marcus muttered, flicking a switch. Sophie, already wandering, called from the living room. "Guys, you gotta see this." The living room was frozen in time. A faded sofa sat against one wall, its fabric stained with dark patches that looked like spilled wine. A coffee table held a single teacup, cracked but upright, as if someone had just set it down. The fireplace was cold, filled with ash that spilled onto the hearth like gray snow. But what stopped us was the portrait above the mantel. A family of 4, painted in somber tones. A man with hollow cheeks, a woman with a tight smile, and 2 children, their eyes too large, too knowing. "Creepy," Sophie whispered, but she was grinning. I couldn't look away from the woman's face. Her expression felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream. We explored further, our footsteps echoing on the warped floorboards. The kitchen was a maze of rusted appliances and chipped counters, with a faint smell of something metallic, like old blood. Lily found a staircase leading up, its banister splintered and cold to the touch. "Let's check the bedrooms," she said, but her voice wavered. Nate led the way, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The upstairs hallway was narrow, lined with closed doors that seemed to hum with a low, almost inaudible vibration. I told myself it was just the house settling, but my skin prickled. The first bedroom was empty except for a single iron bed frame, its mattress long gone. The wallpaper peeled in strips, revealing gray wood beneath, and the air felt heavy, like breathing through a wet cloth. Sophie opened a closet and jumped back. "What the hell?" she hissed. Inside was a child's shoe, small and scuffed, lying perfectly centered on the floor. "Probably just forgotten," Marcus said, but he didn't sound convinced. We moved on, each room more oppressive than the last. One had a cracked mirror that seemed to distort our reflections, making our faces too long, too pale. Another had a rocking chair in the corner, creaking faintly, as if someone had just stood up. Back downstairs, we gathered in the living room, the portrait looming over us. "This place is a dump," Marcus said, crossing his arms. "We should sell it." Lily shook her head, her fingers tracing her sketchbook. It's got character. I kinda like it. Sophie, sprawled on the sofa, laughed. You're both crazy. It's spooky, but that's the fun part. Nate squeezed my hand. What do you think, Clara? I didn't know how to answer. The house felt alive, like it was watching us, waiting. But I pushed the thought down. It was just an old building, right? That's when we heard it. A faint scratching, like nails on wood, coming from the wall behind the portrait. We froze. Mice? Lily whispered, but her eyes were wide. The sound grew louder, rhythmic, deliberate, like someone was carving something. Nate grabbed a crowbar from his toolbox in the van and pried the portrait off the wall. It fell with a thud, kicking up dust that stung our eyes. Behind it was nothing but bare plaster. No holes, no scratches, no sign of anything. But the sound didn't stop. It moved, skittering along the wall, then up to the ceiling, circling above us. What the fuck is that? Marcus snapped, his voice cracking. Sophie, braver than the rest of us, pressed her ear to the wall. Her face paled. It's not random. It sounds like words. She pulled back, her hands shaking. I swear I heard welcome. My stomach twisted. The air grew colder, the chandelier swaying faster now, its crystals clinking like chattering teeth. Lily clutched her sketchbook like a shield. We should leave, she whispered. But Nate shook his head. It's just the house, old pipes or something. We're not running from noises. Then the teacup on the coffee table moved. Not much, just a slow slide, maybe an inch, but we all saw it. The crack in its side seemed wider, like a mouth opening. Sophie screamed, short and sharp, and Marcus grabbed her arm. Okay, that's not pipes, he said, his bravado gone. I stepped closer, my heart pounding, and saw something inside the teacup. A folded piece of paper, yellowed like the deed. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the others crowding around. The paper was brittle, the ink faded but legible. They never leave. Neither will you. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows growing sharper, longer. The scratching stopped, replaced by a low hum, like a voice too deep to understand. The portrait lay face up on the floor, and I could have sworn the woman's smile was wider now, her eyes locked on mine. Nate grabbed my arm. Clara, we need to... His words cut off as the front door slammed shut, the lock clicking with a sound like a bone snapping. We ran to it, tugging at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The windows wouldn't open either, their frames sealed as if welded shut. Panic set in, our breaths loud in the sudden silence. The air smelled sharper now, like decay and something sweet, like overripe fruit. The chandelier stopped swaying, but the crystals kept clinking, a soft, mocking rhythm. Sophie was crying, Marcus swearing under his breath, Lily frozen, staring at the portrait. What do we do? She whispered. I didn't have an answer. The deed in my bag felt heavier, like it was pulling me back to the house. The lawyer's warning echoed in my head. Do not stay overnight. But it was too late. The sun was gone, and the farmhouse was awake. We didn't sleep that night. We huddled in the living room, the portrait watching us, the teacup still on the table. The house creaked and groaned, and every so often that scratching returned, closer now, like it was right behind us. Have you ever felt a place reject you, like it knows you don't belong? Chapter 2. We heard the squeak of their rocking chair on an empty porch. The night after we found that note in the teacup, none of us could shake the feeling that the farmhouse was listening. We'd barricaded the front door with the old sofa, but it didn't help. The air hung heavy with that sour rot smell, clinging to our clothes like invisible hands. I, Clara, lay on the dusty floor beside Nate, staring at the ceiling where cracks spiderwebbed like veins. Every creak of the house made my heart skip, and I kept replaying the lawyer's warning in my head. Why had I ignored it? But morning came eventually, gray light filtering through the grimy windows, and with it, a fragile sense of normalcy. The door unlocked as if nothing had happened, swinging open with a mocking groan. We decided to stay, fool that I was. Selling the place would take time, and we had nowhere else to go. Marcus grumbled about it all morning, pacing the porch with his phone held high, searching for a signal that never came. This is bullshit, he muttered, his breath fogging in the chill air. Sophie, trying to lighten the mood, brewed coffee on a camping stove we'd brought, the bitter aroma cutting through the mustiness. Lily sketched the portrait we'd left on the floor, her pencil scratching softly, capturing those unnerving eyes. Nate and I explored the grounds outside, hoping daylight would banish the shadows. The farmhouse sat on acres of overgrown fields, the grass tall and yellowed, whispering as we pushed through it. In the distance, a barn loomed, its red paint faded to a sickly pink, doors hanging askew like broken jaws. The porch wrapped around the house, wide and weathered, with splintered boards that creaked underfoot. An empty rocking chair sat at the far end, facing the fields, its wood warped and gray. It looked like it had been there forever, grooves worn into the arms from years of use. "Weird," Nate said, running a hand over it. "Feels warm, like someone just got up." I touched it too, and he was right. The wood radiated a faint heat, unnatural in the cool morning. But we shrugged it off, blaming the sun. Back inside, we gathered to plan. "We clean up, make it livable," I suggested. Sophie nodded eagerly. Lily hesitated but agreed. Marcus rolled his eyes but grabbed a broom. As the day wore on, we scrubbed and swept, dust motes dancing in the sunlight like tiny ghosts. The living room brightened a bit, the portrait propped against the wall now, those painted faces less menacing in the day. But the air still smelled off, a mix of cleaning chemicals and that underlying decay. Lily found old newspapers in a drawer, yellowed headlines from the 1950s about a family vanishing from this very farm. "Coincidence?" she asked, her voice soft. Marcus snatched one, scanning it. "Probably. People disappear all the time." But his knuckles whitened on the paper. Sophie, ever curious, wandered to the porch to take a break, calling us out. "Look at this view." The field stretched endlessly, dotted with gnarled trees that twisted like arthritic fingers. That's when we first heard the squeak. It was faint, like a distant hinge, coming from the porch's end. We turned, but the rocking chair was still empty. "Wind?" Nate offered, but there was no breeze. The sound stopped and we laughed it off, nerves frayed from the night before. Back to work. I tackled the kitchen, wiping counters that felt sticky, like they'd been coated in syrup long ago. The faucet dripped steadily, a plink-plink that echoed too loudly. Marcus hauled trash outside, muttering about the isolation. No neighbors for miles. Great. Lily sketched the fields from the window, her lines shaky. Sophie blasted music from her phone. Tinny pop cutting the silence, but it died abruptly. Battery drained despite being full. Afternoon faded to evening, the sky turning a deep orange that bled into the fields like fire. We sat on the porch steps, exhausted, sharing sandwiches. The rocking chair loomed behind us, silent. "Remember last night?" Sophie whispered, glancing back. The note said, "They never leave." Lily shivered. "Who are they?" Marcus scoffed. "Ghosts? Come on. It's an old house playing tricks." But his eyes darted to the chair. As dusk settled, the air cooled, carrying a faint scent of pipe tobacco, sharp and nostalgic, like my grandfather's old habit. None of us smoked. Then the squeak returned, louder this time, rhythmic, like someone rocking slowly. We spun around. The chair was moving, back and forth, the wood groaning with each motion. But it was empty, no one there. My skin crawled, hairs standing on end. "What the?" Nate stood, approaching cautiously. The chair kept rocking, the squeak piercing like nails on a chalkboard, but slower, deliberate. He reached out, stopping it with a hand. It halted, but the warmth was back, hotter now, like a fevered body. "Guys, this isn't funny," Marcus said, looking at us accusingly. But we were all together, frozen. The squeak started again as soon as Nate let go, the chair resuming its motion, faster now. The tobacco smell intensified, thick enough to taste, mingling with something earthier, like fresh-turned soil. Sophie backed away. "Make it stop." Lily whispered prayers under her breath, her face pale. I stepped forward, heart hammering, and grabbed the chair. It resisted, pushing against my grip like it was alive. When I finally halted it, a whisper floated on the air, so soft I thought I'd imagined it. Our porch. We all heard it, eyes wide. The field seemed closer in the twilight, the grass rustling though still no wind. Panic bubbled up. Marcus kicked the chair, sending it skidding, but it righted itself, rocking again, the squeak mocking us. "This place is cursed," he yelled. Nate pulled me back. "Inside now." We retreated, slamming the door, but the squeak followed, echoing through the walls. The portrait in the living room seemed to smile wider, the family's eyes following us. Lily collapsed on the sofa, sobbing. "They're here. The previous owners." Sophie nodded, trembling. "The note. They never left." The night deepened, the squeak incessant, now joined by faint footsteps pacing the porch, boards creaking under invisible weight. The tobacco smell seeped under the door, choking us. We huddled together, flashlights flickering. Then a knock, 3 slow raps on the door. No one moved. "Hello?" I called, voice cracking. No answer, but the rocking grew louder, frantic. Marcus peered through the window. "Nothing there," he whispered, but his face was ashen. Suddenly the door rattled, the knob turning slowly. We braced it, hearts pounding. The pressure built, like hands pushing from outside, then stopped. Silence, but the air hummed with tension. Lily found an old Bible in a drawer, clutching it. "Maybe they want something," she said. Sophie suggested leaving offerings, but Marcus called it madness. Nate and I searched the foyer, finding a loose floorboard. Under it, a small box, letters faded from the 1950s. One read, "The land binds us. We rock eternal watch." The squeak resumed, accompanied by a low hum, like singing, wordless and mournful. The windows fogged, handprints appearing from the outside, small like children's. Sophie screamed. The portrait's eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dark. We realized, the family in the painting, they were the ones. The man with the pipe, the woman, the kids. They hadn't left. The farmhouse was their prison, and now ours. Dawn broke, the sounds fading with the light. We ventured out, the chair still, cold now, but etched into its arm, fresh scratches. Stay. We knew we couldn't ignore it anymore. The farmhouse wasn't just haunted, it was alive with them. What would you do if the dead claimed your home? Chapter 3. The family in the photographs changed their poses overnight. You know that feeling when a picture stares back at you a little too long? That's how it started for us, but it got worse. Much worse. After the rocking chair incident on the porch, we were all on edge, jumping at every shadow. The farmhouse felt smaller, the walls pressing in like they were trying to hug us too tight. I, Clara, couldn't stop thinking about those letters we found under the floorboard, the ones about the land binding the previous owners. Who were they? Why couldn't they leave? The portrait in the living room seemed to hold the answers, those painted eyes following us no matter where we stood. But we pushed on, telling ourselves it was just our imaginations running wild. The day after the porch ordeal, we tried to reclaim some normalcy. Nate and Marcus boarded up the rocking chair in the barn, its squeaks muffled but not forgotten. The barn itself was a cavern of dust and forgotten tools, smelling of hay gone bad and rust. Sophie and Lily cleaned the upstairs bedrooms, airing out sheets that smelled like mothballs and something faintly floral, like old perfume. I tackled the attic, accessed by a pull-down ladder that groaned like an old man. Up there, the air was thick, hot, trapped heat making sweat bead on my skin instantly. Boxes stacked haphazardly, covered in a fine layer of grime that stuck to my fingers. That's where I found the photographs, dozens of them in a cracked leather album tucked behind a beam. They were black and white, faded sepia tones, showing the same family from the portrait. The stern man, the tight-smiled woman, and the 2 children, a boy and girl with those oversized eyes. The photos captured everyday moments, picnics in the fields, holidays by the fireplace, the man rocking on the porch. "Guys, come look," I called down, my voice echoing strangely. They climbed up, the ladder creaking under their weight. Sophie flipped through the pages eagerly. "This is them, the previous owners." Lily traced a finger over one photo. "They look so sad," Marcus snorted. "Old photos always do." But even he lingered on the images. We brought the album downstairs, spreading it on the coffee table under the chandelier's dim glow. The power was still out, so we used lanterns, their light casting flickering shadows that danced across the pages. The family stared back, poses stiff and formal in some, candid in others. In one, the woman stood by the kitchen window, her hand on the sill, looking out with an expression of longing. The children played in the yard, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. The man appeared in most, pipe in mouth, that tobacco scent almost wafting from the paper. "This was their home," Sophie said softly. "And now it's ours." The thought unsettled me, like we were intruders in their story. As evening fell, the house grew colder, the fields outside turning inky black. We sat around the table, the album open, sharing theories. "Maybe they died here," Lily suggested, her anxious nature showing. Nate shook his head. "The newspapers said they vanished." Marcus, the skeptic, leaned back. "People leave, doesn't mean ghosts." But the scratching sounds from the walls had started again, faint but persistent, like fingers tracing patterns. The air smelled of dust and that faint perfume, stronger now. Sophie closed the album. Let's not obsess. It's just pictures. We tried to sleep in the living room, blankets piled on the floor, the portrait back on the wall but covered with a sheet. The teacup sat empty, but I swore I saw steam rising from it once, ghostly and brief. Dreams came fitfully, images of the family watching me, their poses shifting like in a flip book. I woke before dawn, the house silent except for our breathing. Thirsty, I crept to the kitchen, the floor cold underfoot. Passing the table, I glanced at the album. It was open. I hadn't left it that way. Heart racing, I shone my flashlight. The first photo, the family portrait, looked different. The man's arm, previously at his side, now rested on the woman's shoulder. Impossible, I whispered. I shook Nate awake. Look! He blinked, groggy, but his eyes widened. What the? It wasn't like that. We woke the others. Sophie gasped. Their eyes, they're looking right at us now. In the photo, the family's gazes had shifted, staring directly out, as if posing for us. Lily backed away. This is messed up. Marcus examined it closely. Trick of the light? Or maybe there are two albums. But no, it was the same one. We flipped through, subtle changes everywhere. The woman by the window now had her hand raised, waving. The children in the yard were closer together, holding hands. The man on the porch. His rocking chair was tilted back, mid-rock. The changes were small but undeniable. The paper felt warmer like the chair had. The scratching in the walls grew louder, syncing with our flipping pages. The perfume scent bloomed, cloying and sweet, making my head spin. They're moving, Sophie whispered. In the photos. We watched one, a picnic scene. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the boy's head turned toward the camera. Lily screamed, dropping her lantern. Darkness swallowed us briefly, then relit. The photo had changed again. The family now stood as if rising to greet us. Panic surged. Marcus slammed the album shut. Burn it! But as he grabbed it, the cover felt like skin pulsing faintly. He dropped it, cursing. The portrait on the wall, the sheet had fallen off. The painted family had shifted too. The man leaned forward, the woman's smile wider, the children pointing at us. The room chilled, breath visible, the chandelier swinging wildly, crystals chiming like laughter. Shadows detached from corners, slithering across the floor toward the album. We fled upstairs, album left behind, but the changes followed in our minds. In the bedroom mirror, our reflections lagged, poses altering slightly. They're trying to trap us, Lily cried. Nate barred the door, but knocks echoed, slow, insistent. The perfume turned sour like decay. Sophie found a photo in her pocket, one she'd pocketed earlier. In it, the family now included blurred figures resembling us, standing among them. The climax hit at midnight. The house shook, photos raining from walls we hadn't seen. Each showed the family in new poses, reaching out, mouths open in silent screams. The scratching became voices whispering names, ours. The album downstairs thumped, pages turning on their own. We ventured down, compelled. The family in every photo now mimicked us, huddled, terrified. Then, in the portrait, they stepped forward, edges blurring as if emerging. We burned the album in the fireplace, flames roaring unnaturally high, smoke smelling of burning hair. The poses twisted in agony as they charred. The house quieted, but the portrait remained unchanged, eyes still watching. Morning brought relief, but the mirror still distorted subtly. We knew the family was waiting, posing for their next move, ever woken to find a photo changed. Chapter 4. A hidden cellar revealed the true history of the previous owners. After the photographs twisted into nightmares, burning that album felt like a small victory, but the farmhouse didn't let us forget. The air still carried that cloying perfume mixed with decay, lingering like a bad memory. I, Clara, couldn't look at mirrors without seeing a flicker of something extra in the reflection. A hand on my shoulder, gone when I turned. Nate tried to keep us grounded, suggesting we explore more, find answers. Knowledge is power, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Lily sketched obsessively now, her drawings of the family growing more distorted, eyes too big, smiles too sharp. Marcus paced, muttering about leaving, but the van wouldn't start. Battery dead despite being new. Sophie, usually bold, jumped at every sound. Her adventure spirit dimmed. We'd avoided the basement mentions in those old letters. But after the photo incident, curiosity, or desperation, won. The house had secrets and we needed to unearth them. Mid-morning, with sunlight streaming through cracked windows, we searched for an entrance. The kitchen floor seemed off, boards looser there, echoing hollow when tapped. "Here," Marcus said, kneeling. He pried up a plank with the crowbar, revealing a trapdoor beneath, rusted hinges and a padlock long broken. The air that wafted up was cold, dank, smelling of wet stone and something metallic, like pennies. "Cellar," Sophie whispered, shining a flashlight down. Steps descended into darkness, wooden and splintered. We hesitated. The portrait upstairs watched from the living room, eyes seeming to follow our movements. "What if it's a trap?" Lily asked, clutching her sketchbook. Nate squeezed my hand. We go together. One by one we descended, the stairs creaking like warnings. The cellar was vast, larger than expected, walls of rough stone dripping moisture that plinked into puddles. Shelves lined one side, holding jars of preserved fruits gone black, labels peeled and faded. The air was thicker down here, pressing on our chests, the metallic scent stronger, mingled with earth and mold. Cobwebs draped like veils, brushing our faces coldly. At the far end, a wooden crate sat under a bare bulb socket, no bulb. Marcus forced it open, wood splintering. Inside, more letters, diaries, newspaper clippings, all tied with twine that crumbled at touch. "Jackpot," he muttered, but his hands shook. We spread them on the dirt floor, lanterns casting wavering light. The diaries belonged to the woman, Eleanor, her handwriting elegant but increasingly frantic. Entries from the 1950s detailed life on the farm. Bountiful harvests at first, then failing crops, strange occurrences. "The land hungers," one page read. "It takes what it needs." Sophie read aloud. "Our children see them first, the shadows in the fields." "They whisper promises," Lily gasped, "like the silhouettes." The clippings reported local disappearances, farmers gone missing, blamed on accidents, but hinted at more. One article mentioned a curse on the land tied to an old ritual site. "Ritual?" Nate echoed. Deeper in the crate, a map of the property, marked with an X in the north field. "That's where the rusted keys are," Marcus said, recalling overgrown spots we'd seen. But the real horror was a bundle of photos, not the posed ones upstairs, but candid, gruesome. Bodies in the fields, twisted, faces frozen in screams. "Oh God," Sophie whispered. The metallic smell intensified, like blood now. The plinking water sounded like footsteps approaching. We delved further. Eleanor's diary described the previous owners. A cycle, each family inheriting, then vanishing. "They become part of the land," she wrote. "We tried to leave, but the house pulls us back." A final entry. "Tonight, we feed it. Forgive us." The children's drawings were there too. Crude figures with hollow eyes, tending gardens of bones. Lily dropped one, her face pale. "This is their history. They're trapped in a loop." Then the bulb socket above flickered, though no power. A faint glow emanated, illuminating carvings on the walls. Spirals like on the front door, etched deep, stained dark. Touching one, I felt a pulse like a heartbeat. "Guys?" The ground trembled slightly, dirt sifting from the ceiling. The jars on shelves rattled, contents swirling as if alive. Marcus grabbed a clipping. "The cellar is the heart. Don't wake it. Too late." The trap door above slammed shut, plunging us into near darkness. Lanterns our only light. Panic erupted. Nate pounded the door, but it held fast. The air grew colder, breaths visible. Whispers started echoing off stones. Names, ours mixed with theirs. "Eleanor," Sophie called, voice trembling. A response, a soft laugh, childlike. Shadows moved in corners, coalescing into shapes. Silhouettes of the family, poses from the photos, shifting. Lily screamed as one brushed her, cold as ice. The metallic smell was overwhelming. Blood pooling in a puddle that wasn't there before. We huddled, reading frantically. The ritual involved keys, burying them to appease the land. "The Northfield," I said. But we were trapped. Marcus found a loose stone, revealing a small alcove with a rusted key ring, keys twisted unnaturally. "This?" The whispers grew louder, urgent. The shadows closed in, hands reaching. Nate grabbed a key, jamming it into a carving that looked like a lock. It fit, turning with a grind. The trapdoor popped open, shadows retreating. We scrambled up, hearts racing, slamming the trapdoor. The kitchen smelled normal again, but the portrait's eyes gleamed. We had clues now, the land's hunger, the rituals. But the cellar had revealed too much. The house knew we knew. That night, whispers from below kept us awake. Ever uncovered a secret that should stay buried? Chapter 5. The radio in the kitchen tuned itself to a decades-old broadcast. The cellar's revelations clung to us like the damp earth on our clothes, that metallic blood scent fading but never gone. We'd sealed the trapdoor with nails and a heavy cabinet, but the whispers seeped through cracks at night, murmuring about hunger and bindings. I, Clara, kept the rusted keys from the alcove in my pocket, their weight a constant reminder. Nate pored over the diaries we'd salvaged, his face drawn in the lantern light. "The land needs feeding," he read aloud, voice low. Lily's sketches now included those wall carvings, spirals that made my eyes water. Marcus tinkered with the van, cursing the dead battery, while Sophie scouted the fields, avoiding the north one marked on the map. We couldn't leave yet. The house wouldn't let us. Tires spun in mud that appeared overnight, roads fogged unnaturally. So we stayed, unraveling the puzzle. The kitchen became our hub, its chipped counters a makeshift command center. The old appliances loomed, a stove rusted shut, a fridge humming faintly despite no power. And there, on a shelf, an ancient radio, bakelite case cracked, knobs dusty, antenna bent like a broken finger. "Relic," Marcus had said when we first arrived. We ignored it, focused on survival. But that afternoon, as storm clouds gathered outside, turning the sky leaden, the radio crackled to life. No one had touched it. Static buzzed, sharp and insistent, cutting through our conversation about the rituals. "What the?" Sophie jumped, spilling her water. The air smelled of ozone, like before lightning, mixed with the house's sour rot. The knob turned slowly on its own, clicking through frequencies. We stared, frozen. "Turn it off," Lily whispered, but Nate approached, hand hovering. A voice emerged from the static, tinny, distant, a news broadcast. "And in local news, the Harlow family has been reported missing from their farmhouse." We exchanged glances. Harlow, that was them. Eleanor and her kin, from the diaries. The broadcast continued, detailing searches, fruitless. "Last seen tending the north field," the announcer said, his voice clipped, 1950s cadence. But the date he mentioned, June 15th, 1952. "This is impossible," Marcus muttered. "No signal here." Yet the radio played on, volume swelling. Music followed, big band swing, cheerful but warped, notes bending sour. The kitchen chilled, breath fogging. The faucet dripped in rhythm with the tune. Sophie twisted the knob, but it spun back, locking on the station. It stuck. The broadcast looped, same news, same music, but subtleties changed. The announcer's tone grew urgent, then pleading. "The land claims its own," he added once, words not in the original script. We knew. It was them, the Harlows, broadcasting from beyond. The ozone smell intensified, static crackling like laughter. Lily clutched her ears. "Make it stop!" We unplugged it. Wait, it wasn't plugged in. No cord, yet it blared. Nate smashed the antenna, but the sound persisted, echoing from the walls now. The diaries mentioned this. The voices come at dusk, reminding us. Shadows lengthened in the kitchen, pooling under the table like ink. The fridge hummed louder, door ajar, cold air spilling out with a whisper. "Feed it." Sophie screamed as the radio announced our names. "Clara!" "Nate and friends, beware the hunger!" Panic set in. Marcus grabbed the crowbar, swinging at the radio. It shattered, pieces scattering, but the broadcast continued, muffled from shards. "The ritual awaits," the voice said, Eleanor's now, soft and sad. The storm hit outside, rain lashing windows, thunder rumbling like growls. Lights. We had none, but the chandelier in the living room flickered, synced to the music. We fled the kitchen, but the sound followed, piped through vents. Upstairs, we barricaded in a bedroom, radio echoes faint but persistent. The keys in my pocket warmed, pulsing. Nate read more. The broadcast calls the bound. It was a summons. Lightning flashed, illuminating silhouettes in the fields, tending invisible gardens. The radio's voice grew, overlapping. Children's laughter, man's gruff warnings, woman's pleas. "Join us." The climax came at midnight. The house shook, radio blaring full volume from everywhere. We returned to the kitchen, compelled. The shattered radio reassembled itself, knobs turning. The announcer, "To free or bind, choose." A new broadcast, our voices, future echoes, screaming. Sophie turned the dial desperately, landing on static. But within, Morse code, Nate decoded. Northfield, Keys, now. We braved the storm, radio guiding with bursts. The broadcast faded as we approached the field, but the hunger was palpable, ground soft like flesh. We knew the radio was their voice, urging us to end it or become it. Dawn silenced it, but the kitchen shelf held the reformed radio waiting. Ever heard voices from the past calling you? Chapter 6. I saw their silhouettes, tending to a garden that wasn't there. The radio's ghostly broadcast still echoed in our ears long after it silenced at dawn, those decades-old voices urging us toward the north field with promises of rituals and keys. I, Clara, fingered the rusted keys in my pocket, their jagged edges biting into my skin like tiny teeth. We hadn't ventured there yet. Fear held us back, the house's grip tightening. The farmhouse seemed to breathe easier now, but it was a ruse, lulling us. The air carried a new scent, earthy and fertile, like fresh-tilled soil after rain, cutting through the usual decay. We knew it was calling us out. After the kitchen ordeal, we barricaded ourselves in the living room, the portrait's eyes hidden under a blanket again. Nate sketched a plan from the diaries and map, his hands steady but eyes haunted. The north field is key, he said. Literally, Lily nodded, her latest drawing showing spirals blooming like flowers. Marcus, ever doubtful, sharpened tools from the barn, muttering about defense. Sophie stared out the window toward the fields, her curiosity warring with terror. What if we just do it? End this. But night fell, and with it, the whispers returned, now from outside, like wind through leaves that weren't there. Morning brought resolve. We couldn't ignore the broadcast's Morse code anymore. Northfield, Keys, now. Armed with flashlights, the crowbar, and Eleanor's diary, we stepped out. The field stretched under a flat gray sky, grass whispering secrets as we walked. The north field was overgrown, weeds choking what might have been rows once. No garden visible, just tangled vines and thorns that snagged our clothes like grasping fingers. The soil smelled rich, almost inviting, but under it lurked that metallic tang from the cellar. We spread out, searching for signs. Sophie kicked at clumps, unearthing stones carved with spirals. Look familiar? Lily collected them, pocketed a few. Marcus probed the ground with a stick, hitting something metallic now and then. More keys, rusted and bent. What the hell is this place? Nate consulted the map. The ritual site. I felt watched, the hairs on my neck rising. The air hummed faintly, like the radio static lingering. As afternoon waned, shadows lengthened. And that's when I saw them first, a flicker at the field's edge, like heat haze but cooler, forming shapes. Silhouettes, 4 of them, bending and straightening in rhythmic motion. Tending something, but there was no garden, just weeds. Guys, I whispered, pointing. They turned, faces paling. The figures were indistinct, like smoke outlines. A tall man, a woman, 2 smaller ones. Children. They hoed and planted in visible rows, movements deliberate, endless. We approached slowly, the ground softening underfoot, mud sucking at our shoes. The silhouettes didn't react, but the air thickened, the fertile smell overpowering, mixed with sweat and toil. Closer, details emerged. The man's broad shoulders, the woman's skirt fluttering through no wind, the children skipping between rows. But the garden they tended shimmered faintly, translucent plants sprouting where they worked, blooming with ethereal flowers that wilted instantly. It's not real, Marcus hissed, but his voice shook. Sophie reached out, her hand passing through a child's silhouette, feeling a chill that numbed her fingers. The figures paused, heads turning toward us, featureless faces somehow conveying curiosity. Then they resumed, but now mimicking our actions. One silhouette picking up a stone like Lily had. They're copying us, Nate said. The humming grew, vibrations underfoot, like roots stirring. We backed away, but thorns thickened, blocking paths. The silhouettes multiplied, more shapes joining, all tending the phantom garden. The sky darkened unnaturally, clouds boiling. Panic built as the ground shifted, vines snaking up our legs. Lily tripped, falling into soft soil that swallowed her sketchbook. Help! We pulled her up, but the silhouettes closed in, their movements faster, planting around us. The smell turned foul, like compost and rot. Sophie screamed as a child silhouette touched her, leaving a cold burn. Marcus swung the crowbar, passing harmlessly through them, but it angered something. The ground rumbled, fissures opening, exhaling dank air. We ran, but the field stretched, disorienting. The silhouettes herded us toward the center, where a depression formed, soil churning like a mouth. "The hunger," Nate yelled, recalling the diaries. I pulled out the keys, throwing one into the maw. It sank, and the rumbling paused, silhouettes flickering. "More!" We hurled the rest, each key calming the chaos a bit. The figures dissolved as the last key vanished, the phantom garden fading, but not before the woman's silhouette turned. Her outline sharpening to show Eleanor's face, mouthing "thank you," or was it "join us"? We stumbled back to the house, thorns receding, sky clearing. The north field looked ordinary again, but we knew better. That night, vines crept under the door, seeking. Ever seen shadows work where nothing grows? Chapter 7. They left a set of rules for living in their house. You ever find something in an old house that makes you question everything? Like a message from the past, written just for you? That's what happened to us, and it changed how we saw the farmhouse. Not as a building, but as a cage with its own laws. After seeing those silhouettes in the north field, tending a garden that vanished with the keys we buried, we thought maybe we'd appeased something. The ground had swallowed them greedily, and the shadows dissipated like mist. But the house felt heavier that night, the air thick with anticipation, smelling of fresh soil and faint whispers. Clara, couldn't shake the woman's silhouette mouthing words at me. Was it gratitude or a warning? We returned exhausted, mud-caked, collapsing in the living room where the portrait hung uncovered now. We'd stopped bothering to hide it. The family's eyes seemed softer, almost pleading. Nate bandaged Sophie's burn from the touch, a red welt that throbbed like a heartbeat. Lily added the silhouettes to her sketchbook, lines frantic. Marcus checked the van again, battery still dead, roads still impassable with sudden fog. "We're stuck," he said, defeated. Sophie, pale but determined, suggested searching the house more. The diaries mentioned rules. Maybe there's more. The next day we tore the place apart. The foyer yielded nothing but dust bunnies and creaking floors. Upstairs bedrooms revealed hidden compartments, old clothes smelling of mothballs and lavender, letters we'd seen before. But in the master bedroom, under the bed, Nate found a loose floorboard. Prying it up released a puff of air, cool and musty, like opening a tomb. Inside, a small metal box, locked but rusted. Marcus jimmied it open with the crowbar. Papers spilled out. Yellowed sheets, handwritten in Eleanor's script. "Rules for the house," the top one read. "Follow or join us." We gathered in the kitchen, the radio silent but watching from its shelf. The rules were numbered, ink faded but legible. Rule 1. Do not sleep alone. The watchers come for the isolated. Rule 2. Leave a light on at night. Darkness feeds the hunger. Rule 3. Never dig in the north field. The bound awaken. Too late for that, I thought. There were 10 rules, each more unsettling. Rule 4. Ignore the rocking on the porch. Acknowledgement invites them in. Rule 5. If photos change, burn them immediately. We'd done that, but the mirrors still distorted. As we read, the house responded. A creak from the porch, the rocking chair, though we'd boarded it in the barn. The air smelled of pipe tobacco again, sharp. Lily whispered. Rule 6. Do not speak their names aloud. Eleanor, Harlan, the children Ada and Ben. Oops. A whisper echoed back. Yes. Sophie dropped the papers. Rule 7. Offer scraps to the cellar weekly. Appease the heart. The trapdoor rattled faintly. We realized these weren't just rules. They were a survival guide, written as the Harlows succumbed. The buildup intensified as evening approached. We tested the rules foolishly. Marcus, skeptical, turned off all lights to prove it's bullshit. Darkness fell like a blanket, heavy and alive. Shadows stirred, whispers turning to voices. Join us. We scrambled for lanterns, hearts pounding. Rule 2 was true. Sophie slept alone in a bedroom, defying Rule 1. She woke screaming, invisible hands pulling her sheets, cold breaths on her neck. We rushed in, finding bruises like fingerprints on her arms. The tobacco scent grew, mingled with perfume and children's laughter from vents. The portrait's poses shifted subtly again, family leaning closer. Lily read Rule 8. Do not draw or capture their likeness. It binds you. Her sketchbook pages rustled on their own, drawings animating faintly, figures stepping off the page in ink smudges. She burned it in the fireplace, Flames roaring high, smoke forming faces. Nate and I explored the attic again, finding addendums to the rules scratched into beams. The land owns the house. The house owns you. Dust motes swirled like tiny spirits. Downstairs, the radio tuned itself briefly, static whispering. Rule 9. Listen not to the broadcasts. They lie. But we heard our names again, tempting us outside. Marcus broke Rule 10. Never invite guests. The house expands its claim. He joked, wish we had company. A knock at the door, 3 raps. No one there, but fog rolled in, silhouettes faintly visible. The ground hummed, vines creeping up the porch. The climax built through the night. We tried following the rules strictly, huddling together, lights on, no names spoken. But the house tested us. The cellar door burst open, hunger emanating, a void sucking air. We offered food scraps as per Rule 7, tossing them down. It closed satisfied, but whispers thanked us mockingly. The rocking intensified, chair somehow back on the porch, squeaking furiously. Ignoring it per Rule 4 made it louder, vibrations shaking the house. Then, the rules themselves changed. On the papers, new lines appeared, ink fresh. Rule 11. To leave, you must replace us. The family in the portrait smiled now, spaces beside them for us. Shadows detached, forming our shapes, pulling us toward the north field. Sophie fought one off, burning her hand on a lantern. Marcus swung the crowbar, dispersing them temporarily. The air choked with scents, tobacco, perfume, earth, blood. We burned the rules, flames revealing hidden text. Break them all to break the bond. Contradiction. The house roared, walls cracking, ground quaking. Silhouettes swarmed, radio blaring, photos reforming from ash. Dawn broke the siege, rules charred but memorized. The house quieted, but we knew, following or breaking, we were playing their game. Ever followed rules that damned you? Chapter 8. The soil in the north field. Grew nothing but rusted keys. The rules we found and burned haunted us more than any ghost could. They were etched in our minds now, a twisted manual for surviving a house that didn't want survivors. After that night of breaking and following, the farmhouse settled into an uneasy truce, but the air buzzed with unspoken threats, smelling of charred paper and earth. I, Clara, woke with ink stains on my fingers, as if I'd rewritten the rules in my sleep. Nate noticed first. Your hands, but we didn't discuss it. Lily stopped sketching altogether, her pencil snapped in half. Marcus fortified doors with more boards, his skepticism cracked. Sophie bandaged her wounds, but the burns pulsed like signals. We knew the north field was next. The diaries, the map, the broadcast, the silhouettes all pointed there. The rules had warned against digging, but we'd already tossed keys into its maw. What harm in more? Desperation drove us. The van still wouldn't start, fog cloaking the roads like a shroud. We end this, Nate said, gripping the crowbar. We agreed, arming ourselves with shovels from the barn, their handles splintered and cold. The field looked innocent under midday sun, weeds swaying gently, no sign of the phantom garden or churning soil. But the ground felt alive, pulsing faintly underfoot, like a buried heart. The fertile smell was stronger here, mixed with rust and decay, like old blood on metal. We spread out, probing with shovels. Marcus struck first. Clang, a metallic hit. He dug, unearthing a rusted key, twisted and ancient. Just junk, he muttered, but his eyes widened. Sophie found another, then Lily. Soon we were pulling them up everywhere, the soil yielding them like crops. The keys were varied, some skeleton style, others modern, all corroded, etched with faint spirals. No locks nearby, but they warmed in our hands, vibrating slightly. The land grows them, Lily whispered, recalling the diary's mentions of the field's harvest. We piled them, the mound growing. The air hummed, bees or something deeper. No insects visible. Nate consulted Eleanor's entries. The keys unlocked nothing but bind everything. Bury to appease, dig to awaken. As we dug deeper, the soil darkened, moist and clammy, sticking like clay. Pockets of keys emerged, clustered like roots. The smell intensified, metallic tang making us gag. Sophie unearthed a large one, attached to a chain with a locket. Inside, a faded photo of a family, not the Harlows, older. Previous owners? The ground trembled subtly, weeds rustling through windlass. We kept going, compelled, the pile now a heap, clinking softly. Afternoon shadows stretched, and with them the silhouettes returned, fainter in daylight but there, tending around our digs. They planted where we excavated, motions reversed. "They're harvesting us," Marcus said, voice cracking. A key in my hand twisted, pricking my finger, blood dripping into the soil. The ground absorbed it greedily, a sigh escaping. Like relief, more keys surfaced, some fused together like bizarre fruits. Lily found one embedded in bone, a finger bone, human, cleaned but old. Oh God, we uncovered more fragments, ribs, skulls, all cradling keys and cavities. The field's secret garden, bones and metal, grown from the hunger. The diaries confirmed. The land feeds on the bound, sprouting keys to lock new souls. The humming grew to a drone, sky dimming unnaturally. Silhouettes solidified, faces emerging. Eleanor, Harlan, Ada, Ben, and others, generations back. They reached for our pile, but we guarded it. Vines sprouted, wrapping shovels, pulling. Sophie swung hers, severing them, sap like blood oozing. The soil churned, keys rising on their own, floating briefly before sinking again. Marcus dug a deep hole, hitting something solid, a chest, wooden and rotted. Inside, more rules, but ancient, and a master key glowing faintly. "This unlocks the bond," Nate read from attached parchment. But grasping it burned, visions flashing, families inheriting, digging, feeding the land, becoming keys themselves. The climax erupted as dusk fell. The field convulsed, soil erupting in geysers of keys, pelting us. Silhouettes swarmed, cold touches draining warmth. Bones reassembled, skeletal figures rising, clutching keys like weapons. Lily screamed as one grabbed her, key pressing to her heart. We fought, smashing bones with shovels, but they reformed. The master key in my hand pulsed, guiding. I thrust it into the chest's lock, turning. A wail rose, wind howling, keys dissolving into rust dust. Silhouettes faded, bones crumbling. The field stilled, but the master key remained, now cold. We fled back, key in tow. The house groaned as if pained. That night, keys rattled in walls seeking entry. Ever planted something that grew into nightmare? Chapter 9. We learned why the previous owners could never leave the land. Have you ever felt tied to a place like invisible chains holding you back? For us, it wasn't metaphorical. After unearthing those rusted keys from the Northfield soil and locking away whatever hunger lurked there with the master key, we thought freedom was close. The field had calmed, no more churning earth or sprouting metal. But the farmhouse whispered doubts, its walls creaking like laughter. I, Clara, kept the master key hidden in a drawer. Its glow faded but weight heavy, pulling at me like gravity. The next morning, the fog lifted slightly, roads visible for the first time. Marcus rushed to the van, turning the key. It started, engine rumbling like a beast waking. "Finally!" he shouted, joy cracking his voice. We packed hurriedly, throwing bags into the back, hearts light. Lily hugged her burned sketchbook remnants. Sophie checked wounds that now itched strangely. Nate squeezed my hand. "We're out." But as we drove down the gravel path, the engine sputtered, dying at the property line. Beyond, the road stretched clear, but the van wouldn't cross like an invisible wall. We tried pushing, but tires spun uselessly, kicking up dust that smelled of rust and bone. "What the hell?" Marcus kicked a wheel. Sophie wandered back, noticing the fields, silhouettes faint in daylight, watching. The air hummed again, low and insistent. We retreated to the house, van abandoned at the edge. The portrait greeted us, family eyes knowing. "We're trapped," Lily whispered. The rules echoed in my mind. The land owns you. Desperate, we pored over salvaged papers. Eleanor's diary held clues. The boundary is the bond. To leave, one must stay. Cryptic. Nate found a hidden passage. The inheritance isn't the house, it's the curse. Pass it or perish. The previous owners hadn't left. They'd become part of it. The broadcasts, the rocking, the photos, all echoes of trapped souls. We explored the boundaries, walking the perimeter. The fields ended abruptly at a line of gnarled trees, twisted like barriers. Crossing felt wrong, a pressure building in our chests, breaths shallow. Sophie tried running through. She bounced back, invisible force throwing her, landing bruised. "Like a dome," she gasped. The smell of earth intensified, soil shifting underfoot. Marcus, frustrated, dug at the line, shovel biting deep. Keys surfaced again, rusted and mocking. "This place is alive," Lily nodded, recalling rules. We gathered at the porch, rocking chairs still but warm. The radio crackled faintly, static whispering, "Stay." Afternoon brought discoveries. In the attic, amid dust and cobwebs smelling of age, we found a family tree. Generations of owners, names crossing out, ending with Harlow's, then ours added in fresh ink. "How?" Nate breathed. The tree showed cycles, each family trapped, feeding the land until replaced. The deed wasn't a gift, it was a summons. Silhouettes appeared closer, tending the boundary, planting invisible seeds that grew into thorny vines blocking paths. The humming became voices. "Join the watch." Sophie touched a vine, pricking her finger. Blood drawn, vine blooming red flowers that wilted, dropping keys. We confronted the portrait, removing it. Behind a safe, the master key fit. Inside, contracts, ancient, signed in blood. The land trades souls for prosperity, but claims them eternal. The first owner, centuries ago, bargained with something buried, binding descendants. To leave, you tricked another in, but the Harlows failed, vanishing into the soil. Night fell, boundary glowing faintly, like a membrane. Silhouettes masked, shapes of past owners, including Harlow's, faces pleading yet menacing. They pressed against the invisible wall, hands flattening. The house shook, cellar rumbling, hunger awakening. Vines crept inward, soil erupting, keys that floated, forming chains. Marcus smashed the safe, but papers reformed. Lily burned them, flames spelling no escape. The radio blared full. Broadcast now our story. They learned too late. Sophie screamed as a silhouette merged with her shadow, pulling. The climax surged. The boundary contracted, fields shrinking, house centering. Silhouettes breached, cold touches draining life. We ran to the north field, master key glowing hot. Digging the chest again, we found it pulsing. Inserting the key reversed, a vortex opened, sucking silhouettes in wails. But it pulled us too. Nate held me, Marcus clung to Sophie, Lily alone slipped toward. We chained together, resisting. The land's voice boomed, one must stay. The why clear, balance required a guardian. Lily volunteered, eyes resolute. Go. We refused, but the vortex weakened. In unity, we thrust the portrait in, family souls as substitute. It shattered the bond, boundary dissolving in light burst. Dawn, we crossed the line, van starting. Looking back, the farmhouse sagged, empty. But keys in pockets reminded, the curse lingers. Ever been bound by inheritance? Chapter 10. To free the farmhouse, we had to invite them inside us. We thought crossing that invisible boundary meant freedom, the farmhouse shrinking in the rearview mirror like a bad dream fading. But dreams have a way of clinging, don't they? The master key sat in my pocket, Clara's pocket, cool now but heavy, a reminder that some locks don't stay shut. Nate drove in silence, his knuckles white on the wheel, while Sophie stared out the window, her burns fading unnaturally fast. Lily clutched the charred remnants of her sketchbook, and Marcus fiddled with the radio, static crackling like distant laughter. The air in the van smelled faintly of earth and rust, even miles away. We didn't talk about it at first. The escape felt too fragile, like speaking might summon it back. Back in the city, our old apartment felt foreign. Walls too straight, air too clean. We unpacked, but the keys we'd pocketed from the field followed us, appearing in drawers under pillows. Coincidence, Marcus said, but his voice lacked bite. That night, the rocking started, faint, like a chair on wooden floors, though our place was carpeted. Sophie woke screaming, silhouettes in her mirror tending a garden of shadows. Lily's new sketches drew themselves, spirals blooming into faces. The radio in our kitchen tuned to static, whispering rules we thought burned. The haunting hadn't stayed behind. It had hitched a ride in us. Nate found Eleanor's diary in his bag, pages added. The land follows the bound. We gathered, hearts sinking. The curse wasn't the farmhouse. It was us now, carriers. Photos on our phones shifted, our faces morphing with the Harlows. The smell of tobacco and perfume seeped from vents, soil crumbling from our shoes endlessly. We researched online, but screens glitched, showing old broadcasts. Desperate, we returned to Vermont, the road pulling us like a string. The farmhouse waited, unchanged, door ajar as if expecting. Inside, the portrait was whole again, family smiling welcomingly. The cellar hummed, Northfield overgrown, but keys glinting in soil. To free it, we invite them, Lily read from a new rule etched on the wall. The build-up was slow, deliberate, like the house savoring our return. We explored anew, finding hidden rooms. One with mirrors reflecting our bodies but Harlow faces. Another with a table set for 9, us and them. The air thickened, scents layering, decay, blood, fertile earth. Whispers named our fears. Nate's job loss, my doubts, Sophie's loneliness. Marcus, the skeptic, saw his reflection rock in the chair, pipe in mouth. "This can't be," he whispered, but it was. Night fell, storm raging outside, lightning illuminating silhouettes circling the house. The radio blared the 1952 broadcast, but now with our voices interwoven. "The only way out is in," Eleanor spoke through static. We huddled in the living room, portrait looming. Lily suggested the ritual from diaries, invite them inside, share bodies to break the bond. "Possession?" Sophie gasped. But the alternative, eternal trap. We prepared, drawing spirals on the floor with key rust mixed in blood pricks. Candles flickered, chandeliers swaying. The rules appeared on walls, glowing. Invite to free. Marcus resisted, but vines crept under doors, soil erupting from cracks. The cellar door banged, hunger rising. We sat in a circle, holding hands, chanting names we shouldn't. Eleanor, Harlan, Ada, Ben. The air chilled, breaths visible. Shadows detached, swirling. The invitation. Enter us, share our forms, release the land. Wind howled inside, candles extinguishing. Darkness swallowed, then sensations. Cold flooding veins. Memories not ours flashing. Harvests failing. Rituals in fields. Disappearances. Eleanor's sorrow filled me, her tight smile mine now. Nate gasped as Harlan's sternness gripped him, pipe taste on tongue. Sophie giggled madly, Ada's playfulness twisting her. Lily drew in air, Ben's curiosity guiding her hand. Marcus fought hardest, but vines pinned him. Harlan's "no, wait," the man's resolve breaking his skepticism. The climax surged, bodies convulsing as they settled in. Visions, the land's ancient entity, a buried thing feeding on souls, bound by the first bargain. Sharing let us confront it. Through their eyes we saw the heart in the cellar, a pulsing mass of roots and bones. United we descended, the house shaking, walls bleeding soil. The entity writhed, keys sprouting like thorns. We, us and them, attacked, tearing with hands and shadows. Eleanor's knowledge guided, dissolving bindings with chance. The mass screamed, echoes of past victims. Keys melted, soil drying to dust. The boundary shattered, a wave rippling out. As it died, they withdrew, whispers of thanks fading. But fragments lingered, a taste of tobacco, a urge to rock, a shadow in mirrors. We left, farmhouse crumbling behind, land barren. But in us they live on, faint but there. Free or just relocated? Ever invited something in to cast it out?